Good morning, children. Today I am going to discuss with you the topic the emergence of two power blocks with the help of this map. You can see here, this is the map of Europe, and you can see there are few countries which are shaded in yellow and few countries which are shaded in red. So we are here talking about two power blocks. This is one block and this is called as US block, and this was USSR block. US block, you cannot see here the map of Europe, but these are Western European countries which had formed an alliance with America. And this all yellow shaded countries like Norway, you can see Britain, you can see West Germany. Why we have West Germany? Because at that time Germany was divided between East and West Germany. So West Germany was a part of Western Alliance. France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, here you can see Turkey. They were all NATO members. You can see here all yellow shaded part, they were all NATO members. It was an organization which was formed in the year 1949 by 12 countries. NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and these members were called as Western Alliance countries, whereas the second alliance was headed by USSR, and the allied members were East Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. All these countries had joined the bloc headed by USSR, and this bloc was called as Eastern Alliance. So we can see this was a bipolar world, Western Alliance, and this is Eastern Alliance. Western Alliance was headed by USA, Eastern Alliance was headed by USSR. Second thing, Western Alliance had formed this organization called NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. How many members were there in the beginning? 12 members, formed in 1949. Similarly, all these yellow shaded nations, they also, in order to contradict Western Alliance, they also signed an agreement called Warsaw Pact. So this way, what did we see? The whole world was slowly getting divided into two alliances called Western Alliance and Eastern Alliance. Okay, this is how we saw that Cold War period led to the emergence of two power blocks. Let me explain you another map that is given on the next page. You need to understand that map also. Here you see slightly different categorization of countries. You can see here that yellow shaded countries are called first world countries, where you can see Canada, you can see USA, you can see this is UK, Britain, this is Ireland, this is France, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. All these countries were called as first world countries. Actually, during Cold War period, this categorization where you can see there's a first world countries, red shaded parts were called as second world countries, green shaded parts were called as third world countries. This categorization was done on the basis of economic factor, or you can say to some extent political situation also. So this yellow shaded part, they were called first world countries because these countries were economically more developed. So they were called first world countries, and they were all Western Alliance countries, you can say capitalist nations. Yellow, this red shaded part, these countries were all communist nations, and all these countries were called as second world nations. Whereas all the green shaded part, you'll basically see the countries of Asia, then Africa and South America. These countries were called third world countries because most of these countries were not very developed. They had become independent after Second World War, and economically they were very least developed nations, and majority of these countries from these three continents were members of non-aligned. I'm not saying all, most of them were members of non-alignment. So if you see on political basis, capitalist nations, then these were communist nations, and most of them were members of non-aligned countries. So first world countries, second world countries, and third world countries. You know that Western alliance, here the USA had formed one organization called NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. But along with this Western European countries, America also had formed one organization in central part of Asia, which was called as CENTO. CENTO means Central Treaty Organization. And in this region, that is Southeast Asia region, America had formed SEATO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. Many of these countries were members of SEATO. It means, what I mean to say is, all these green shaded nations were not non-aligned countries. Many of these smaller nations here and in the central part, they had joined US bloc. Similarly, Russian bloc had friendly relation with China. They also had developed friendly relation with Iraq. Then in North Vietnam, North Korea, Russia had its presence in Asia. In this way, during Cold War period, what did we see? First world countries were there, second world countries were there, third world countries were there, and at the same time, the world was divided into two blocks. Next, I'm going to tell you that why the smaller nations were very much interested in joining the superpower. Actually, they joined the superpower for their own purpose. Number one, they were given promise that they will be protected from their neighboring rivals. They will be provided with weapons. They will be given economic help. It means smaller states joined bloc by their own calculations. They made their own calculations and they found that if they join a superpower, they will be given all these three support. Now the next is, why were superpowers interested in having an alliance with smaller nations? There also lies a number of reasons. Number one, if they had a lot of smaller nations with them as an ally member, they were sure of getting vital resources. Smaller nations, all the resources of those smaller countries can be used by these superpowers. Second, they will get territory, which is very, very important. Territory means territory of smaller countries will be used by these superpowers for their weapons. Do you remember Cuban Missile Crisis? Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuba was used by Russia and it converted Cuba into its military base. Third, they also will get location from which the superpower could spy on their enemies. And fourth, these smaller nations can provide them economic support whenever these superpowers will need it. So it was give and take from both the side. Smaller nations were assured of getting protection, weapons and economic help. And why superpowers were interested in having an alliance with smaller nations? Because of resources, territory, then location and economic support. In this way, what did we see during Cold War period? That the whole world was divided into, or there was an emergence of two blocks. Thank you.